Oh no, Robert, you were muted.
Hello, I'm Robert Wolff.
And I'm Gabriel Peterson.
And I'm Michael Hall.
And welcome to Innovation Coffee. Well, apparently I innovated a new way to screw up the introduction for this.
You'd think we were brand new.
Yeah, you would think so, right?
Who was it at Open Source telling us that like video's easy, audio's hard?
Audio keeps messing with us. I mean, like we've gone through multiple iterations. Anyways, yeah, that was fun. We had the audio going from the YouTube here on the side, the audio on my computer, everything was messed up. But cool. Hello, everyone. Welcome to Innovation Coffee. Once again, I'm Robert Wolff.
And I'm Gabriel Peterson.
This is Michael Hall.
And I'm Michael Hall.
And we're all here to bring you some very cool stuff that happens in and around the ARM developer ecosystem. Today, we're joined by Jim White, who's the CTO of IOTech Systems. And we have a lot of interesting questions and things and topics to talk about with him. We'll be bringing him on in just a moment. But I did want to at least run this by Michael and Gabe. Last week was a pretty fun episode as well. Do y'all remember who we spoke with?
Yes.
Who?
I do.
Who,
Yeah,
Michael?
Christopher Seidel from
There we go.
Christopher Seidel from ARM. Yes, and we were talking
Kyle
about
MDK.
the Kyle MDK, the new tool. What was it? Version 6.0, where we are we already at? So
yeah, the VS Code extension for it.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun. And Christopher Seidel, I want to say, what a great presence to have on the show. I thought it was a lot of fun. The guy definitely has done it before, talked in front of people, and we'll make sure to include the link to that description shortly in the chat as well as in the description. As a reminder, if you enjoy this episode and all of our Innovation Coffee episodes, make sure you hit that like button. In fact, smash it. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel. We do go live every single week at 5 p.m. UTC. That's unchanging. So whether your time zone changes or not, the UTC time stays the same. 5 p.m. UTC. Make sure you check us out. We do this every single week. Michael, this is actually a guest you invited, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'm really excited because Jim and I worked together on the EdgeX Foundry project for like 18 months. So, I've been out of that loop for a little while. It's really a treat for me to have him on and to catch up with him personally and also on news about the project, because I know when I was there, I was really excited about it.
Yeah, we were just talking in the green room when I showed up to the studio today. Gabe was asking me, he's like, hey, have you heard anything about EdgeX Foundry? And I'm like, no, but today we're going to get to learn about EdgeX Foundry. And so, Michael, if you'd like, why don't you introduce our guest and I think take it away from here. This is your show today.
All right. Well, then I'll introduce Jim White. He is the CTO of IOTech Systems. He is also the founder of the EdgeX Foundry project itself. So, Jim, welcome to the show.
Michael, great to see you again. Robert, Gabe, great to be here, and thank you for the confidence booster that you give me. Now I can unmute myself on Zoom and not feel like even professionals leave themselves muted every once in a while. So so thank you.
Yeah, so sometimes
right,
we have
Jim,
sometimes we have to tone it down, just to make sure that everyone feels comfortable. Yeah. Sorry, Mike.
Yep. That's the name of the game. So, Jim, tell us a little bit about your background.
Yeah, sure. So I call it the great accident, Michael. I've been in the industry now over 30 years, and it feels like every day is a new day. But my career has been one where you see a new technology, you kind of get into that, and it blossoms into something. I started off in the United States Army, and from there I've been primarily in the software side of things, mostly in what I'll call enterprise compute, and it's really only by fortune, or some might say misfortune, I'm not sure. I got into this edge and IoT space through Dell Technologies, and it's been just a wonderful, wonderful ride. And it's been the highlight of my career. So it's been through consulting and enterprise computing at places like Target, all the way now through Dell and with IOTech Systems, which is a Dell-sponsored startup where EdgeX Foundry has really taken off. So thanks for having me. I really appreciate coming on your show.
Yeah.
Thank you
How
for
did
your service, by the
started
way.
in software?
Sorry, I just want to thank you for your
Again,
service.
Robert.
Yeah, thank you for your service there, Jim.
You're quite welcome.
Yeah.
How did you get started in software? Did you go to school for it, or is that something you learned while you were in the Army?
Yeah, again, that kind of a happy accident. I went through school, getting ready through ROTC to be in the Army, and the Army said, "Hey, we need some guys like you." I'd say smart guys, but if they planned to hire a smart guy with me, they were obviously misinformed. But they decided they needed some guys in a lot of the technologies. The military was really ramping up at that time to do more with information technology. As you all know, it was in the ages just before the first Gulf Wars and the early 90s. And so they said, "Would you like to go to graduate school? And if so, we'll pay your way, get you into computer science, do all sorts of wonderful things on your way out." So I did that. Spent 10 years in the military, building systems that actually we were doing AI, believe it or not, back in the early 90s, and we actually had some of the first neural networks that I can ever remember in existence out there.
Wow.
So it was a lot of fun, but that launched a career into to all sorts of things from there.
That's awesome. Now, before we jump into talking about EdgeX, I want to just give a little bit of background context for people who may not be aware. I'm sure you're going to talk a lot about industrial IoT. And a lot of our viewers, they may be familiar with consumer IoT, smart devices, things like that. What sets industrial IoT apart?
Yeah, great question, Michael. And it's kind of a common joke inside of our company, and I'm sure with a lot of other people in this space. The first thing you have to do whenever you engage with anybody in this space is define for me your IoT or your edge, because they're all different. We talk to telco providers, and what's edge to them is what sits at the bottom of a telco tower. When you talk about industrial IoT, you're typically, and typically is a rough word to use in this industry, I found, but typically you're talking about connecting to equipment at a very low level, operational technology. So you're talking about protocols that span many decades, Modbus, BACnet, OPC UA, protocols that are specifically helping to drive machinery, drive equipment, getting information from sensors and devices at a very rudimentary level. So operational technology is all about making factories work, making what I say hot, smelly places function well, places we don't usually want to be as humans. So we want to put equipment down there and get that information to us. But now industrial IoT, like all of edge and IoT computing, is really trying to make that information available in higher levels of the enterprise, so into our IT worlds. And so that's why you put the I in front of IoT. Industrial just means connecting that industrial equipment into IoT spaces, which then means connecting it back into the enterprise. So it's an extension of the network, is the way a lot of people put it, just moving more compute, more data collection, more intelligence out farther into our world, in this case, into those industrial settings.
So, oh, sorry, Gabe, did you want to say something?
Oh yeah, I was just going to ask, because it has these differences, would you recommend someone who is interested in industrial IoT to enter that field to get familiar with consumer IoT first because of how just widespread and easily accessible? Or would you recommend, because of the differences, just jumping right to that side and learning those technologies first?
Yeah, Gabe, that's an interesting question. I come from an IT background, and I've got a lot of people I worked at from the OT background. In fact, that's where IOTech really has some expertise, is in that OT side. It is the joining of those two. You can't really spell IoT without IT and without OT. It is the combination of those. And now you add the extra I in there, it just means more of even an industrial or OT background. I find that there's a need for all. So if you come from an IT background and you want to get into this space, start digging in, but there's going to be need for your skills even as they exist today. You don't have to be a factory manufacturer, industrial protocol expert in order to jump in. Same thing if you're on the OT side and you want to start to expand out in the enterprise. That's what this space is all about. We need all sorts of skills. It takes a village to build an edge solution today. So come one, come all. If you are excited about really kind of like I say seeing things working at the very ground level, this is one of those really neat spots to be in. You know, you think about data centers and things, you walk into a closet full of computers, you really can't see stuff moving, stuff shaking. You can't see where, you know, sometimes your input is at. Here you see it because it has arms, it moves, or it has things that sense. So you can really see it. So it's kind of an exciting field.
Cool.
So yeah, I wanted to, sorry, Mike, I just want to get one of my questions out of the way here. Or I guess one of my comments, you said, you know, in order to understand, or at least from your interpretation, is in order to understand what industrial IoT is, one must first define their interpretation of IoT. And I think, did I say that right?
Or edge. I think
Or
we
edge.
use the terms edge and IoT. I don't want to say synonymously, Dave, but there's a lot of overlap there. Yeah.
Yeah. So like when I think of IoT, I think smart city, smart home, things like this, where you have these devices out at the endpoint, right? And even you could even consider IoT your cell phone, right? Where you know, this is the endpoint, right? So any endpoint, I look at IoT. When I think of industrial IoT, I think of endpoints that have some sort of on-premise presence. So and please, like, tell me if I'm wrong in this particular case. Like industrial IoT is you have all of these endpoints possibly on a factory line or some manufacturing plant or some entity or area, but there's some sort of on-premise compute to manage this, to make sure that it's fast and reliable, whereas you don't depend on some back-end server or third-party service to manage these endpoints. Is this a interpretation? And I'm trying to maybe, if anything, offer a segue into IOTech Systems.
Yeah, I think, Robert, you bring up an interesting aspect of it. And yeah, to a certain degree, you find in the industrial settings that there is going to be a certain amount of on-premise compute, right? And that's really where our company is pressing to move more of that down to the farthest extent of the edge. Having said that, you don't limit it to that anymore. I think we're, you know, when we first started to think about IoT or industrial IoT, and now we maybe more generally call it industrial edge computing, it was all about what do you do inside of a factory, or what do you do on that offshore oil platform? Yep, but more and more of that now is, yeah, but we need to bring the power of the enterprise in. You think about AI and ML, you're typically not going to run a lot of that at the extreme levels of the edge, yet some of that is extremely important in helping to improve and get better return on investment. So yes, there is an on-premise component, but you quickly grab the data, you get it in, and now how do we get it up to that next level where maybe we can involve some AI ML? And there are various stages of that. It's not just a single endpoint and a single enterprise in a data center. There are multiple levels of edge all the way through. So it's become a much more complex and heterogeneous environment, but there is a certain amount of on-premness, is that a word? On-premness that you will find in industrial settings.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you very much. That helps me.
The edge really has become layered now, right? Like you've got compute at the edge that has lower resources but faster responses, and then you push it up a layer and you get a little more resources at the cost of a little bit slower response, and then you go out to the cloud and you can do, you know, huge computations on a huge set of data, but it takes a little bit longer. So it's not just like one thing anymore, is it?
You're exactly right, Michael. It is kind of what's the word I'm looking for? It's an environment which extends from the farthest node to the cloud, and everything in between. So edge computing today, you know, we talk about cloud native and the integration of cloud native, what I call edge native, and it's just one almost seamless system today, and it's making the decisions about where do you put the compute, how much compute can you get away with, where do you put the intelligence, how far down can the intelligence go, where do I need to move the data, can I leave the data where it sits? A lot of questions. The technology now is really starting to expand and be there. Now it's more about thinking design questions and architecture questions about what will work in my environment for my use case.
All right, well, that sounds like a perfect segue into talking about EdgeX Foundry and what it's designed to do. So can you give us a little bit of background about how EdgeX got started and what the problems are that it's specifically trying to tackle?
Yeah, sure can, Michael. So EdgeX Foundry began on my kitchen table back in around 2015, literally. It is a project where I just had joined Dell. Dell was getting into the business of manufacturing edge gateways, or IoT gateways, as we called them then. And they turned to this new engineer and said, what software are we gonna put on that thing? And so that was my task: is what do we want to ship out these gateways with? And we came to some pretty quick decisions as far as that was concerned, in that it was a heterogeneous environment. You needed lots of partners. It takes a village to build these solutions. So we didn't see that a proprietary solution sitting on a Dell gateway out there was going to make a lot of sense. It probably wasn't going to solve a lot of problems. It wasn't going to be the type of thing that would easily allow for integration of other components and other solutions out there. So we said, let's start to see if we can't develop something that's a little bit more open and very, very flexible. That's the key ingredient. If you want to put a word next to EdgeX Foundry, it's about flexibility. That allows for it to do what I call the meat and potatoes activity of the edge, but involve others and integrate with other systems, other solutions as you can. So EdgeX started as a means to, in a microservice technology, to think about what are the ingredients we need to operate at the edge, collect data, be able to talk to all sorts of different protocols, actuate on that data, which means putting some form of analytics, whatever you can, at the edge, and maybe gradually increasing that over time. Being able to get that data out of the edge to anywhere, any place, anytime, in a format and a design that people want. In other words, you like JSON, you like XML. Oh, you want it formatted via haystack specification. Be able to do all of that, and/or if we can't do it all, at least provide for the openness and the APIs and the interfaces so that you can build your own ingredients and pop them in place. So EdgeX is as an edge platform, that microservice based, that allows you to pick and choose the elements you need, add your own ingredients. In fact, we actually provide SDKs to allow you to do that, and be able to perform that very necessary task of connecting the OT world with the IT world. It's a non-glitzy way of saying it, but EdgeX Foundry is middleware. It's edge middleware, sitting between things and devices, and whatever the things and devices that need to speak to the back end, your enterprise, your cloud, need to do. So in a short sentence, that's what it's about. So from there at Dell, when we took us a couple of years to kind of get some initial things going, and then we decided that it was most appropriate to contribute that to the Linux Foundation, where it sits today in Linux Foundation under a larger umbrella project called LF Edge, which is kind of all-encompassing edge components. We've got about 60 some companies that have been a part of EdgeX Foundry. We've got about 10 million types of container downloads. It's used all over the world, and that is our legacy today.
So I want to address two things here. By the way, thank you. That was a great answer. And by the way, anyone watching, there's the link, edgexfoundry.org. Go check it out if you want to learn more. We do have a question in the chat, in the YouTube chat, I'd like to get to. Mike, do you mind if I ask that one?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So this one comes from Graylish. He's actually one of our ARM ambassadors. Great guy. He's been on the show a few times. And he asks, I think this was related to the last discussion we had right before this one regarding on-prem gear and stuff like that. How do you guys handle the argument with classic and legacy machine builders that are super nervous about connecting their PLCs, OT equipment to cloud-based IoT platforms that are online systems?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, Grealish. And you still have some of that. It's a matter of time. Yes, there is concern. Yes, there are security needs. Yes, you in some cases have to have air gaps and such. That will probably occur for quite some time. But the world is changing to which operationally there just isn't the ability to put an absolute wall in place, because you're missing out on a lot. You can't make the changes in your industrial 4.0 type of world if you don't connect the edge and have that information. I think what we often, with customers, what we often talk about too is, let's talk about that classic legacy machine in a way that helps to think about whether or not we need the data from it, and do we need to actually back down, because we could protect that, right? Just because you're getting data off of a machine factory floor doesn't necessarily mean you provide access to control that factory floor. Maybe the first step is just getting some information, and then any kind of adjustments back down are manually driven. There are also ways to bring that data in locally on-prem, to your point, Robert, and have that on-prem data be scrubbed, isolated, and then from there moved independently up into things like the cloud. So there are ways to gradually move from what is more of a isolated, secured, firewalled environment to slowly connect that in and get that into more of the back-end enterprise that we know. And there's going to be certain circumstances, right? I don't want my heart system operating in my body necessarily connected to anything other than a very few remote types of systems. But there is a way to graduate the solution here. But the answer is it's coming. There's really no way of getting over that. If you want to try to get more return on investment from those really big IoT environments, it has to be connected.
This is a big thing, right? Oh, sorry, Mike. I just wanted to one last thing on this is that I view this as a big thing, right? Because and I've talked about this many times on the show in terms of AI at the edge, isolating, filtering, like what you kind of said is determining what you want to send up, right? And so as compute moves out closer to the edge, closer to the endpoint, we're now capable of actually doing these types of things and deciding what needs to go up there in a more automated sense. But yeah, anyways, Mike, there is one more question in the YouTube chat. I don't know if you want to ask that after your next question. Sorry.
Yeah, let me just have a follow up to what Jim was just saying. So like EdgeX has a security layer, and I think having an edge middleware really kind of gives you that safety mechanism. You're not just connecting a PLC or a robotic arm to the internet, like with a public IP address and letting people do whatever they want with it, right? So part of the EdgeX framework is, these device profiles where you define exactly like what you can get off of the device and how you can control the device.
Yeah, absolutely, Michael. That goes again to the whole flexibility, right? And you can gradually graduate and gradually increase what it is you do as you become more comfortable and as you improve things like security. The EdgeX Foundry community too has always recognized that we're not going to be the experts at everything. Security is one where we do our best. We put some good ingredients in place, but as companies start to understand their vulnerabilities and their security loopholes as they try and connect more of the edge to the enterprise, they're gonna help us. They're gonna help all of us. They're gonna help themselves for figuring out where are some of those gaps that we need to fill, and how do we shut some of those doors, or where can we leave some of those doors a little bit more open. As you said, we don't want anybody controlling a factory arm through a PLC out there hacking away from their internet, and that's not going to happen. It's just there's just not going to happen. But there are circumstances where you do want to start to at least understand and see that data more easily, and so we provide that facility.
This is like a perfect example of Skynet building their own Terminators.
Actually, what it had me thinking of is Michael went right away with, oh yeah, you don't want it connected, but it would actually be kind of fun to connect a robot to the internet and put it on like a live stream and then have the chat able to control it.
Hey, that'd be cool. Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be fun. Very, very short amount of time.
Yeah. The big robot arm from Open Sauce, that big yellow one, like that could literally just like.
Yeah, I was thinking something small that couldn't destroy my house.
Give it a big enough turn radius.
So we do have another question from YouTube from Mark Bedo. He's asking if you could compare and contrast BACnet and Modbus, and maybe more broadly, like there's dozens of protocols out there, especially in industrial IoT. How does EdgeX handle all of those?
Yeah, so comparing, contrasting BACnet and Modbus, a lot of these protocols, Modbus started, 1979, right? So it's one of the oldest technologies out there, really based on what it's improved, and there are some advantages of what's new today, but really a serial type of communication, think twisted pair type of thing. BACnet is usually the type of thing you see operating in thermostats in your home or office space. So it does a lot of industrial work, but more towards the building automation side. The key thing that I tell everybody, don't get hung up on the protocols. Those are going to change over time. you're getting new sensors today. We're seeing sensors that are BLE and more wireless protocol types of apparatus replacing some of the older and legacy. So don't get too hung up on the protocol, because you need to, in an IoT or edge environment, address all of them. And that's, again, where EdgeX Foundry is really critical. The way we do it is, there's in the EdgeX platform, there's kind of a base to the platform. And then we provide what we call, or what we've labeled, a microservice set called device services that are below the base. And each of those device services speak a particular protocol. We've got a BACnet device service. We've got a Modbus device service, BLE device service. With some, let's call it configuration, a little bit of information on your part about what type of thing you're trying to talk to. That device service allows us to connect to, start to bring in and ingest, and also command and control devices via that protocol. So the way that EdgeX is able to speak all these protocols so that it's not as important to you about which protocol you're speaking is by providing that layer of microservices. And oh, by the way, we provide an SDK that says, if we're speaking to a particular type of device that we don't know anything about, or maybe it's a brand new type of protocol, the SDK is there to allow you to create that for that new type of connector that you need to that new device. That's the type of ingredient you want, because if anything, I can guarantee you in this space is that change is constant. So even if you fall in love with Modbus today and you really like that 1979 protocol, don't fall in love with it too much. It's probably going to change tomorrow as people are going to put in new equipment, put in new services and new capability to extend what they need happening at the edge. Importantly, focus in on, I can connect, and now once I've connected, what do I need to do?
So I want to actually, because this is a conversation I feel that can go quite deep, right? So I'm going to remove this question real quick, and Dara Graylish as well as Aaron Williams looks like have some questions coming up in the chat. But there is a place for conversations like this, correct, Jim? And I think you provided us with a GitHub discussions area.
Absolutely, yeah. We have, as you see on the screen right now, we use GitHub for all of our code, but there's also a discussions part of GitHub nowadays that you can post any question out there into our discussion group. Got a wonderful community that will try and answer questions. I know everybody here is going to put up all my contact information to reach out to me, and if I don't have the answer to, I'll get you to the right people in the community. So lots of places you can go for information.
Yeah, that's great. And I mean, to be honest, also, as anyone watching knows, we try to do our best to make sure all these links and everything are in the description as well. So if you're watching on demand, just scroll down to the description and you'll find everything that we've talked about there if you don't see the chat. Mike, there's more questions in YouTube. This is amazing.
Yeah, we got a lot coming in from YouTube. So Grealish is asking, what's your opinion on the industrial household brands being predominantly vertical integrators, where it's a challenge to integrate with them?
Yeah, if there's one battle that we constantly, I shouldn't say it's a battle, it's a challenge that we face in a lot of the places that we go to, is that organizations at one point in time have decided, hey, we're going to go down the route to buy all, and I'm going to say some names here. I'm not trying to pick on anybody. It's just that it is the way it is, right? We're going to buy all Siemens stuff. We're going to buy all Schneider stuff, whatever the case might be. And so in those circumstances, what that tends to do is, if you want to start to now provide for a more heterogeneous environment, you have to come up with ways to integrate a lot of that proprietary stuff. That will typically take you outside of something like the EdgeX Foundry open source community. Can't work with a proprietary type of protocol, but that's where companies like mine come in, right? IOTech can work with the Siemens of the world, and we can develop the connectors to the Siemens types of equipment. I think that's going to be a question that we're going to see raised, not to people like me. I'm offering the open solution, but we are going to see that question being raised to some of these large industrials: is how can you start to play more with others nicely? And they are doing so. Not to take names of specific companies that are doing more or less. I'll let everybody do some of their own research there. But we are seeing an evolution there where the people who used to provide very proprietary stacks are starting to open up and trying to find ways where they can still participate, still have their legacy equipment be out there, because it's not going to go anywhere anytime soon, but allow for integration of other solutions in to allow the OT edge, and particularly the IoT edge, to be connected into the background more seamlessly. So look for solutions. I would recommend anybody out there who's trying to build these kinds of systems, and edge paraphernalia in general. Look to try and find those groups that are going to move the needle for you into the more flexible open world. Even if you have to deal with some of the proprietary stuff, that's okay. Just see if you can't find a way to integrate more of the pieces together with more of an open, flexible solution.
I like
it will
it.
save you money in the long run. I will tell you that. And that, by the way, that it should make a point here too. That's not just in the industrial edge. We see that. Let's not forget we've got a lot of cloud providers out there who would love to lock you in. And so you need to look at this at both ends, right? And the cloud providers too have to answer some of those same questions about how do you help make this so that it's flexible and I don't get locked into your cloud forever.
I've talked about that before, by the way, the whole locking you in on clouds. There's startups out there that go and they, get into this cloud provider that, let's just use AWS or Oracle, for example. And they have these startup programs. They'll get you in on this startup program, give you a bunch of money, teach you how to use all their services, get your whole department into it. And then next thing you know, when the funding runs out, you have a $50,000 a month bill and no way to migrate off the service. Not to say that it wasn't wonderful for them to help you get started, but there is definitely something that, developers, startups, companies need to keep in mind for this type of stuff.
Yeah, it's if you don't mind, Robert, I'll share a war story with you on that. And that is we've had a couple of customers who did what I call the sensor to cloud build out for their first edge solutions, which means, hey, rather than trying to put a lot of stuff in place, try to put intelligence at the edge, figure out the whole solution with moving more to the edge, let's just put a few sensors in place and send all the data directly from those sensors to the cloud. And let's see what happens. And we can maybe, figure this whole thing out very simply by attaching a few sensors to the industrial edge. Then they would get their first month's bill. And then they said, well, this is not going to work, especially when the bill was larger than their entire IT budget for that year.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, you have to be careful of some of those circumstances. Some of the cloud providers, cloud native is a wonderful technology, but some of the cloud providers would love nothing more than you to collect every bit of data that you have at the edge and just ship it north and then figure out what to do with it. That is not an answer that's going to satisfy most companies.
Though I will say real quick on this one, I have heard some very nice stories in terms of the support that they get from these cloud providers. So you ran up this $50,000 bill and they're like, hey, that was a mistake. We understand. We're going to waive that for you. Let's figure out a way to make this better and more accommodating for you and your company. So there's still ways to work with them, but yeah.
And there's some great technology out there, right? Digital twin, if people want to do types of digital twin types of things, you need some sort of cloud provider to give you the twin, right? We provide the physical, you provide the digital twin. There are some great technologies out there. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that don't do things without a cloud provider in mind. I'm just saying don't think that sending all the data north and then sorting it out from there is necessarily your answer. Think about your problem a little bit. Think about what you really need. Think about, again, where you need to start to move compute. Some things don't actuate on a dime. In other words, you're going to have some things, especially in industrial edge, where you have to operate on a millisecond type of time frame. So the edge requires you to kind of put all that into context and figure it out. A good example I give to people is you would not want the airbag in your car to fire based on a decision made in the cloud. So think about your edge environment in that manner. What is critical? What needs to move to the cloud so I can do more long-term thinking about it? And what has to happen most locally, either because of decisions that need to be made more latency kind of environment or things from a data perspective, what's absolutely necessary.
I love that analogy, by the way, the airbag from the cloud. I'm going to use it. I'll give you credit.
Yeah,
no, that's fair. Free license.
I used to use the example of a boiler getting like above its pressure threshold, and you don't want to wait for a response from the cloud to tell you to turn off the heater on it.
That's right. Yeah.
Yep. All right. Our next question is going to come from a familiar face for you. It's from Aaron Williams. He's asking, with your customers, where do they start? How many devices? Is there something where you do all their devices at once, or do you start small and kind of grow from there?
Yeah, I would love to tell you that the answer is people come in with a million things they need connected and start to write big checks and just have us do it. That doesn't work that way. The cycle here is one of some time, and be patient. I would say that to both sides. Providers like myself who are providing solutions, but also for those of you who are thinking about building edge solutions, it does take a little bit of time. Give yourself that time. So in the direct answer to Aaron's question, we usually start with things like what we call pilots or proof of concepts. Hey, can you connect this piece of equipment or this part of the factory line and show us some data? Show us, you can give us information we didn't have before. Okay, you were able to do that. Let's graduate that now out to the entire factory. Slowly over time, we migrate to the entire complex, and collection of data and actuation, where you're actually using that data to drive something, also graduates over time as well. Collecting data, I don't want to say it's harmless. Some of that data is very sensitive, but collection of data usually is one that doesn't impact things until you get the data, you analyze it, and you figure out what you want to do. Closed loop types of systems where you're getting data and having automated decision being made at the edge, that takes a little bit more time to feel comfortable with, right? Back to your boiler problem, right, Michael? You don't want that $1 million boiler blown up because of you just didn't work through some of the initial thoughts about how this was going to work, and it makes a wrong decision out there. So it is a gradual assessment of the technology over time, getting comfortable with it, starting to work out the costs, starting to work out the complexities in the process. There are workflows that sometimes have to change in organizations because you're bringing in the technology that is moving work around. It's becoming less maybe operator sitting over a screen, but more looking at large amounts of data and trying to figure out where the return on the investment is. So it takes some time to kind of work through that. Most organizations have had, by the time we see them now, most organizations have started to think through some of that, but none of them have come to us with a complete plan that says, this is exactly what we want you to do, exactly how we want you to do it, and the timeline we want.
Great questions, everyone, by the way. Aaron, Graylish, Mark, we have another question from, it looks like Sally. I'm not sure how to pronounce that name. I'm sorry if I butchered it, but Arim. But a great question so far. This is awesome. And Jim, great answers. I'm learning so much today. This is great.
Yeah, our comments on the YouTube are blowing up today. This is great.
Yeah.
Sally did ask, how do you work with ODMs or OEMs who are building industrial IoT gateways? Do you work with them to get EdgeX running on that? And if so, who should they contact?
Yeah. So the answer is yes. This is a great plug for ARM. Is that I think as we see more industrial IoT, all of edge computing growing, one of the things that people are starting to really study too is just exactly how much compute do I need down at the edge, what type of compute. So the OEMs are definitely getting involved, right? Dell, Advantex, you name it. ARM systems out there, TD Synnex, we're working with a lot of these types of groups to help provide the solution on top of the hardware and other infrastructure. I think there are some that are probably more advanced than others, but when you think about compute at the edge, typically, I'm not saying it's in all circumstances, there are different use cases out there, but typically you've got a lot. It's scale. It's about scale. And so when you look at an ARM type of platform, it tends to be one that's a little less expensive, that tends to fit in some of those really niche spots of the edge that make it a real good financial decision. And there are lots of providers out there that we're working with in that kind of space. And what's wonderful, I think, about that is you don't have to get it all exactly right away. Again, it kind of goes to Aaron's question about the graduation of needs. Start to collect the data. Hey, and if a little Raspberry Pi box out there can with EdgeX on it, which EdgeX does run on it, by the way, if EdgeX running on a little Raspberry Pi box out there starts to allow you to collect that data, you can graduate up to the next level of infrastructure and slowly migrate this, if you'd like to bigger compute, where maybe you want to start to actually push AI ML down to the edge. So OEMs absolutely are an instrumental part of what we do. I will tell you that the industry's changed here a little bit. Like when I was at Dell, I think a lot of the OEMs, groups like Dell included, tried to push this from a hardware perspective. It's like, hey, let us sell you a gateway and then we'll help you figure out what goes on the gateway. I think most people realized that was probably not the way they wanted to go. Even Dell struggled with that. They had to kind of pull back from that strategy and said, no, really, we need a more of a collective solution that comes into play. Everything from the compute to the data storage to the network, because you have to move a lot of this data. Where does AI ML come in? So it has to be thought out a little bit more. So ODMs are a partner in a much larger collection of groups, including companies like my own, that help figure this out. So when you're working to put together an edge solution, it's good to have your favorite vendor of choice in mind, but look out and kind of see how they play and interoperate with a lot of the other components, because you're going to need that village to put the thing together.
And in terms of the last part of that question, is there any reason for, Sally, Aram to reach out to you or someone from your company? And I mean, also
we would love to.
They did ask, do you support startups? So I'm guessing they might be representing.
We are a startup, right? So IOTech is a very small company. We do nothing but edge software. So we are a startup. We have a lot of relationships with a lot of the major vendors that are out there, the ones that I've already mentioned, plus others. We'll be happy to take your call, and I can help direct you to some of those groups. We have partnerships or in partnership programs with Dell, HP, TD Synnex, Advantech. We work with all those groups. So if it's hardware you need, if it's the OEM relationship you need, and that's where you want to start, happy to do so. Where we'd kind of like to start the conversation though is tell us a little about what you want to do. Before we start picking equipment, let's figure out a little bit about what you want to do. Then we'll go and we'll chat with organizations about what they can help to put in terms of infrastructure underneath. And if you want to start the conversation with that infrastructure first because you already have everything else worked out, hey, great, I'll make the referral. But yeah, please feel free to reach out to me and be happy to have those discussions.
That's awesome. And we haven't shared your LinkedIn here yet, but we did get permission from Jim to share his LinkedIn. There it is. So Sally, if you want to go check that out, maybe you can get connected there and start with how Jim just kind of laid it out. Cool.
So Jim, you mentioned that EdgeX will run on a Raspberry Pi. And I know, given your microservices architecture, you've got the device services and also you've got like the core services. So what kind of devices, what are the specs that you need to run EdgeX, either on devices or on gateways?
Yeah, great question, Michael. It really hasn't changed since you were part of our community. We kind of look at the Raspberry Pi. We can run in a little bit less than a Raspberry Pi, but we kind of look at that as kind of a good target platform, right? Give us a gig of memory. Give us a bit of storage out there. We don't need a lot, but a lot of the storage just depends on how much data do you want to collect over time. Give us a fair amount of compute processing power. By that I mean about Raspberry Pi size. We need a CPU. We don't need a special NVIDIA card. We don't need any other special compute. A single CPU will typically do it for most use cases. If you go to EdgeXFoundry.org and you go out to our website and you find our documentation, we actually have a page out there that will give you the resource requirements, but they're very, very limited. We are pretty independent. And as you suggested, Michael, if you really need to break things down even smaller, you can do so. There is a way for EdgeX to be distributed across a collection of compute nodes that you have. So that's its purpose, is to go out to the smallest crevices of your network and help collect and actuate. A company like mine, IOTech, even goes smaller than that. We have a software module that we call Edge Connect that actually fits below Edge Expert that would run on a PLC or an MCU, so that if you need to actually go even farther out, you actually need to sit inside of that robotic arm. We have technology that will sit in there, pull the data out, and then get it up to something like an EdgeX-based platform, or get it to the cloud wherever you need to. Solutions like that are coming about. I don't think, when I talk to most organizations today, I don't think being able to get software to the extremes of the edge is as much of a problem as it was when I first started in this space. We're getting to where things are pretty well orchestrated at that level, in terms of being able to fit into the tiny compute spaces that you have. Resources are also getting better, right? Moore's law is kicking in even at the edge, so things are getting stronger out there anyways, but we're able to get out there. Key ingredients now are typically about, can you, how fast can you do that? What's the requirements in terms of being able to collect the data quick enough and actuate down quick enough? And a lot of questions I get today is, can I move AI ML to the edge? Well, I'm probably not going to move AI ML to your PLC yet, but I'm getting pretty darn close to being able to move a lot of it down to the farthest edge.
Very nice.
Does EdgeX do anything with AI or ML now? I know when I was there, they didn't, but it was something that was being discussed.
Yeah, great question, Michael. So the answer to that is we facilitate a lot. We, as an EdgeX open source community, we provide a lot of APIs and interfaces so that you could connect in your own AI. IOTech. I give you a couple examples where we have done that. For example, we work with Intel quite a bit, and they have a visual inference AI/ML platform called OpenVINO. We now have it set up so that our EdgeX-based solution can talk to a camera that's positioned over, say, something like a point of sale, and their OpenVINO AI/ML running at the edge with our EdgeX-based solution can look over the point of sale, and it's visually detecting what product you're buying. As you're blipping items across a barcode reader or an RFID scanner, the camera is also looking, and it's built to do things like theft detection. You can pretty easily, I'm learning a lot about how you can steal from your local Target or Walmart, but you can pretty easily spoof things like barcodes and RFIDs. It gets really hard when you have a camera and an RFID code and a barcode, all those coming in. So we work with AI/ML with OpenVINO to use visual inference to include that as just another ingredient of your edge solution. And we're seeing that more, especially in visual inference spaces and things like using that as an element of. AI/ML then can also be used today if you've got relatively straightforward requirements there. You can have AI/ML do more of the analytics and turn results back to EdgeX so that it can operate quickly. So it could do the types of things, I don't want to say it can fire an airbag, but it can make some really intelligent decisions that normally EdgeX would just have something like a simple rules engine do. So yeah, we are seeing more evolution of that. It's not the AI/ML or the runtime of the AI/ML that really is the complex thing. The real complex thing in intertwining AI/ML is who builds the model, how often does that change, and how do you redeploy a model down to an edge, which is 10,000, 100,000 nodes. That's where the complexity is. That's usually where we get involved in.
Cool.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So one of the things I'm always curious about when talking to people such as yourself who are really ingrained with the technology is, do you have any favorite kind of use cases you've seen so far that are the most interesting to you or anything like that?
Yeah, Gabe, that's a great question. I guess mine, because of my gray hair and my age, and looking back at my career, I got more career behind me than in front of me. Where I like the projects where you're like, this could change the world, right? This could help save lives, or this is the type of thing that's going to make us as a human race better. And so the ones that really engage me, all of our customers are great. I love working with them, and there's some really exciting things. But the ones that really are engaging me right now are the ones like we're working with this small startup out of Oregon that is doing aquaponics, hydroponic farming, and using our EdgeX-based solution to help drive that process to better grow crops, stronger, better, faster, by getting more soil sample, more moisture data. Plus, if you know anything about aquaponics, and I didn't, I'm learning, but it's a balance between growing things in soil and having fish and the fish waste be exchanged so you have more fertilizer automatically. It's kind of a really highly balanced, very sensitive type of ecosystem they build, but it allows for some wonderful ecological advantages in how we grow the next generation of food. Those are the types of problems that really excite me, because it's like, wow, okay, if we can help make that better, we're making a lot of things in our world better, and we're producing more food for the world, hopefully. So obviously those are the types of things that interest me. But all these problems in this space are ones that from my career are really exciting, because it's touchy-feely stuff. I mean, you're not dealing with, how many clicks do we get on our website? You're dealing with how do we do something in a millisecond to save somebody's life? Those are the interesting things.
Yeah, I love hearing about things like that, because I don't think I've really ever done a project in my life where I'm like, yeah, this is making the world a better place. And I really should. Like,
what do you mean? That game you pushed out at Open Source was amazing. Floppy bots.
Floppy
Yeah.
bot. Yeah.
Yeah, my knockoff games are saving the world.
Yeah. No, but I will say
we all participate, guys. I mean, you guys are making, ARM is making the platforms that make all that happen, right? I mean, so we all play our part. It's some of us, on occasion, some of us get to touch the inner circle where it seems like it's happening, but we're all playing a part. The world is too complex nowadays.
Just what you said
Building
right now.
The future on ARM. That's our motto.
Yeah.
You're gonna make our heads too big here, Jim. Like we are ARM. No, but the cool thing I really liked about this, I think I saw a demo of this. What you were talking about, the hydroponics or the aquaponics with the fish that kind of self-feed. It reminds me of seeing, I think it was like some Instagram videos where they had these isolated systems. There were these isolated systems with plants and algae and soil and possibly like little bugs. And it's literally a corked system where it just lives on its own.
The big glass jugs.
Those big glass jugs. And you think like, well, how the heck does this survive without any food going in, any air going in? It just lives. And I love that idea. And so, when you think about making food, let's just say more efficiently, entropy in our planet, it's just, you can't unhard boil an egg. You can't unburn a piece of wood. You can't add nutrients to soil once it's been completely depleted. So we need to find these ways to make things done more efficiently, so we're not burning it up too quickly. We need our progeny to continue existing. I just wanted to kind of share that, and I love that you brought that particular example up.
If there's anything I can encourage the people who might be listening, if you're looking to try and get into this kind of thing too, there's so many of these types of problems too. And what amazes me is you can impact things here, and you can make a difference. And there's money. So if you want to do good for the world and make some money, these are the areas. I mean, you think about like these farms that we're working with this company to help. They need a couple of prototypes that are built, but they're talking to nurseries that are thousands of grow bed, and that's one farm. And in Oregon alone, there's probably a couple hundred of these farms. You start to do the math in your head, and you start to realize, not only are we going to help make the world a better place, but I'm going to get filthy rich. I'm just saying that, kidding aside, but there's a lot of revenue out there. There's a lot of return on investment, not only to feel good about what you're doing, but for those who are looking at startups and looking for spaces, there are a lot of these spaces, and not just in farming. There's a lot of it in clean air, more efficient use of energy. Working with a battery storage company and trying to figure out how to optimize their use of batteries. There's a lot of these things out there right now, and it needs some good people to start to put their minds around it.
I think I just need you to teach me the target vulnerabilities so that I can just become filthy rich that way.
Fair enough. We all have our goals.
but seriousness though, for people who do want to change the world and get rich off of it, how, say somebody is coming from not having any like industrial IoT experience, they don't have industrial equipment to work with. What's the easiest way for somebody who wants to start learning EdgeX and start trying it out to get started? Yeah,
Michael. So we have a number of places, and you go out to edgexfoundry.org, and again, you'll see resource for beginners. Find our documentation. You can find that at docs.edgexfoundry.org. So if you want to go, you can get there from our website too, but if you want to go there directly, you can find it at docs.edgexfoundry.org. There's tutorials. There's a quick start guide. In fact, I just did an online tutorial with Linux Foundation that should be available. I think they said about mid to late August. It's supposed to be a class that you can do in under 60 minutes to get EdgeX, get it up and running, and start to do some simple things with it. And it follows a lot of the same things we've got in our tutorial and our guide. So, don't feel like you have to wait for that to come out, but that should be announced through Linux Foundation here in mid-August. Send me a note. If you can't find it, I will point you in the right direction. We still have a lot of Michael Hall videos out there that will get you started as well. So all of them still apply.
Oh, we got to get some screenshots from those. Mike. We got to put those in the Discord server.
Yeah,
this the right one? He's
got a nice vest and tie on. He dresses much snappier than I do. So worth a view.
Now. Yeah, I wear the ARM developer program T-shirts now.
Wait, time out. Where can I find these videos, Jim?
YouTube. Yeah, look up EdgeX Foundry on YouTube. EdgeX Foundry. We have a channel out there. I'm not sure exactly how to get that, but if you look up EdgeX Foundry on YouTube, you'll get there.
Oh, I see a bunch popping up here. Let's see. Okay, cool. All right, we'll pull these up on the next episode, Mike.
Oh, great!
I got you in trouble, Michael.
This will be fun.
No, it's good. I do miss wearing like the bow tie and everything at EdgeX Foundry webinars and stuff.
Without a doubt, Michael's our snappiest dresser.
Very nice. Well, so we are down to the last 6 minutes of the show. Out of respect of your time, Jim, of course, those who are viewing, we do like to keep it within the hour. So I think at this point, any last questions from you, Mike, from you, Gabe, and or otherwise we transition on to Jim, your shameless plug, as we call it.
Right. So my question is, what is exciting that's coming up in EdgeX?
Yeah, so we just released EdgeX 3.0 in June. So that was our third major release. We have consistently released once or twice a year, once every semi-year for the last 6 years, 7 years now. So we've been very, very consistent, but we just came out with our third major release. On top of that, after we do a major release, we also then do what's called an LTS, long-term support release. That'll be coming out in November. That'll be our next release. That's important. An open source project very rarely gives you what they call long-term support. They give you a bunch of code and they say, hey, go use it. If you want to adopt it, great. Any problems or issues, that's on you. Don't give us a call. Don't call us. We'll call you. EdgeX doesn't do that. It's a community of people who have commercial interests. They have production needs. So they really stand behind the product. And LTS is a guarantee from our community that for 2 years, the product that we produce will be supported, meaning that there's a critical bug, there's a security flaw, we go in and we fix it and provide you a new copy. That's almost like a commercial type of endeavor to do that. So on top of EdgeX 3.0 coming out with this LTS release in the fall, it really gives people who are interested in using it in production type settings more legs to stand on. So we're pretty excited about that. There's always new features. I'll let you go to the website for that. There's always some new stuff coming out. We've started to develop a lot more partnerships with other open source projects. We're talking with the folks from OpenZD right now. We're looking at how you bring in more security apparatus around the environment, how you use a faster, lighter message broker. A company out of China called EMQX is building a nano MQ. Think about that kind of like a competitor to HiveMind or something of that nature, but it's open source. So we're always doing those kind of things to broaden our flexibility, broaden our reach, and broaden our communication with other projects.
Awesome. All right. Well, so Mike, anything last from you? Gabe, are we good to go?
I mean, my normal last thing is sign up for the developer program if you haven't already.
Sign up for the developer program. Okay. Yeah. Well, now I got to go to that banner.
Yes, you
Gabe,
do.
Thanks a lot. All right. Developer program. Here we go.
I just want to once again thank Jim for coming on the show. It has been great to catch up with you again. I've got some ideas of stuff to do with ARM virtual hardware and EdgeX. So I will be getting back into that, which I'm excited about. And you'll probably see me on your GitHub discussion boards.
Michael, always great to talk to you. Nice to meet you, Robert and Gabe. It's been a pleasure to be on your show.
Great meeting you.
Thank you. Thank you. All right. So then if it's okay, I'm going to close this out. We ready for that? Okay, excellent. Yep. So first I'll move. I'll do it like this. I'm gonna take your spot there, Jim. All right. So once again, thank you everyone for watching. Jim, as Michael just said, thank you very much for your time. Everyone watching, we know you could have spent your hour doing anything else. You spent it here with us. So we really do appreciate you for that. I want to just kind of go down the list and talk about all the different URLs and information we kind of talked about today. So for those of you who are interested in learning more about EdgeX Foundry, edgexfoundry.org. Make sure you go check that out. Of course, we were joined by Jim White, who is the CTO of IOTech Systems. Make sure you go check out IOTech Systems or iotechsys.com. Go learn more about that. LF Edge, which is the organization that houses the EdgeX Foundry. You can go learn more about that company there. Of course, they do a lot of really cool events throughout the year as well. Then we have Jim White's LinkedIn page here. So make sure you check that out. And you don't need to write any of these down. They will be in the description below, but I just want to kind of cover all of this. And I think one of the most important things here is this GitHub Discussions area. So of course, go check out all those websites and maybe eventually you end up here. But from this discussions area, you can get more information, have more conversations, and really, dive deeper into this world that we've been talking about through the last hour. Last but not least, as Gabe so well put it, make sure you check out the ARM developer program. You can go there, you can visit the program, getting there through the developer hub. This is one of our newly launched pages that gives all of our developers access to all sorts of really great stuff, ARM developer related. And don't forget to join us. Oh, there's the Discord server. Great. All right, great. So we're covered. Excellent. Next week, we have a surprise. Mike, yes.
No, I was just saying, we got it all covered.
We got it all covered. All right. So let's go back to here. Y'all have a wonderful rest of your day. We will see you next week. Surprise guest in order for you. Jim, once again, thank you. IOTech Systems for giving us all this great stuff to talk about today. So you have a wonderful week, everyone. Bye.
Peace.
Hey.